Agent Survival Guide podcast, Friday 5, our weekly recap of 5 things you should know about. I'm your host, Sarah Ruppel, and today is Friday, May 29th, the last Friday in May 2026. Last week was a very busy week of training here at Ritter Insurance Marketing. We didn't have too much desk time last week, so we took a little week-long holiday to devote our full attention to that training. And now we are back to talk about the 2027 Marketplace Final Rule. Just a quick mention before we get into that. I guess you can consider this mention a mix of Ruppel Recommends and Content Corner. I get a lot of my podcast recommendations while listening to other podcasts. And this next one I have for you is a recommendation that I heard on The Best One Yet that came from their hosts listening to an episode of 99% Invisible, which happened to feature an episode of the podcast Drug Story, hosted by Matt Goetz. Each episode of Drug Story is dedicated to a drug and the disease it treats, which we all know can sometimes end up being something completely different than why the drug was initially developed. And in the spirit of origin stories, I just had to share that this week while it is fresh in my mind. Plus, the fact that it's a recommendation 3 times removed is just kind of fun. Even better, if you hear a fun fact while listening to the show, you can include that in your client newsletter with a link to listen to the podcast episode to learn more about that particular drug or disease. But now on to our feature presentation. 5 takeaways from the 2027 CMS Marketplace Final Rule for insurance agents. I like to mention this upfront in all of my 5 things or 5 takeaways episodes, especially when we are talking about regulatory changes and guidances. This is just a selection from a much larger piece of legislation. We will be linking to the full version, which clocks in at 352 pages. I try to pick out what's going to affect insurance agents and your clients the most and the soonest. So what I mention might differ from what others mention, and that's probably because we have slightly different audiences. There are some changes that go into effect for coverage year 2028 in this year's final rule, but I'm not going to focus on those right now. We're going to stick with what's changing for coverage year 2027. And first up, since we are heading into certification and training season, for those selling marketplace plans, CMS has sunset the third-party vendor training programs. So if you previously took your annual trainings through Health Sherpa or INSX Cloud, those options are no longer going to be available for the 2027 coverage year. CMS is funneling all marketplace training through their MLMS portal in hopes to cut down on fraud, waste, and abuse. Next on our list, CMS has finalized the rule removing non-pediatric dental services as an essential health benefit from ACA coverage. CMS mentioned in the proposed rule that most employer coverage does not include this benefit. It's added by purchasing a separate ancillary form of dental coverage. They are interpreting parity between marketplace and employer coverage literally. If apples are medical coverage and oranges are dental, CMS wants the parity to be apples to apples, not apples to apples and oranges. If you are selling in the ACA marketplace and do not have dental plans in your portfolio, this is one of the easiest products to get started cross-selling because of demand and familiarity. And now the benefit will no longer be included in the medical side of coverage. And just a reminder that here at Ritter Insurance Marketing, the FMO that powers this podcast, we have resources on how to sell dental products as well as other ancillary coverage. Great product to start out with, get comfortable with it, and then you'll have some confidence to branch out into other forms of coverage. Now, let's talk about some of the changes coming to plan design, because the options that your clients will have is certainly changing for the 2027 plan year. In the 2027 final rule, CMS finalized their removal of standardized plan regulations. Standardized plan options no longer have to be meaningfully different from one another. Limitations on non-standardized option alternatives were also removed. Previously, each carrier could only have 2 non-standard plan options per metal tier on the marketplace. That restriction is now gone. Bronze plans are able to have different cost-sharing parameters for plan year 2027. CMS will allow carriers to exceed the bronze plan out-of-pocket limit in hopes of bringing a more affordable premium to that coverage tier. And then catastrophic plans with multiple consecutive plan years are back on the table, and they can be written for up to 10 consecutive years. And of course, these new plan options also come alongside new and existing silver, gold, and platinum metal tier plan options. The ACA marketplace has always offered a variety of plan options, but the smorgasbord is expanding for 2027. That's not a bad thing. Think of this expansion of options as really cementing that need for insurance agents to help parse through plan comparisons and really narrow down those coverage options. Now, let's talk enrollment changes. We'll start with the special enrollment period for those making less than 150% of the federal poverty level that was sunset for plan year 2026. In the 2027 final rule, and as we expected, CMS has eliminated the special enrollment period for coverage year 2027 and beyond. CMS will expand the hardship exemption as proposed back in February for individuals over the age of 30 who find themselves ineligible for other savings because their income falls below 100% of the federal poverty level or above 250% of the federal poverty level due to a change in income. Those individuals would qualify to enroll in catastrophic coverage. CMS also finalized their proposal to require pre-enrollment SEP verification on 75% or more new special enrollment period enrollments. Another verification requirement CMS finalized: when trusted data sources show that an applicant's income falls under 100% of the federal poverty level, yet their application attests that their household income is above 100% of the federal poverty level. According to CMS, this, quote, use of inflated incomes could have resulted in consumers being improperly enrolled in exchange coverage, oftentimes without their knowledge, end quote. CMS is hoping that by verifying income eligibility prior to enrollment and payment of the APTC, they'll be able to catch fraudulent activity earlier in the process before money changes hands. And then last but not least on enrollment, the dates for the 2027 ACA Marketplace Open Enrollment period. Federal exchanges will run open enrollment from November 1st through December 15th. State exchanges must also open on November 1st, but they may set their own end date as long as enrollment ends by December 31st, and open enrollment does not last for more than 9 weeks. Moving on to our last takeaway from the ACA final rule, conduct rules around marketing. For those of us selling in both the ACA and Medicare markets, these will sound familiar. For those of you who aren't also selling Medicare, welcome to the fun that is compliance. And as many horror stories as you may have heard, it's really not that complicated. So let's break down what CMS has to say. Information agents give to consumers must be correct and cannot be misleading. One of the biggest issues on the Medicare side of things in recent years has been the tendency for fraudulent actors to claim benefits and premium costs as being available to all individuals, when really they're only available to a very small subset of qualifying individuals. So even though there might be $0 premiums or $0 benefits available in a market, agents can't claim that every consumer can qualify for those benefits unless every consumer is eligible for those benefits. And spoiler alert, I can tell you without looking at a single quote engine that not every consumer will qualify for every single plan or benefit available in that market. Couple other important nuggets to remember. Agents cannot provide cash, monetary rebates, or cash equivalents to induce a consumer to enroll. That is bribery and it is illegal. Now, gifts of nominal value are still allowed, so go ahead and order all those fun tchotchkes. Just keep in mind that the CMS Medicare gift rules apply, and you can't give those gifts out as a reward for doing something. Everyone's got to be able to get one if they wish. Government logos, notations, or things that look like government logos and notations are prohibited in your marketing materials. No one should look at your marketing materials and think you are a representative of the government. And then communication about enrollment timelines and deadlines must be clear. You cannot create a false sense of urgency for enrolling in a plan with an impending deadline that does not exist. Misinformation is also covered in this marketing guidance. No, quote, misconstruing of legislation, regulations, or executive orders, including listing references or citations to fake or incorrect legislations, regulations, or executive orders, end quote. And we've officially put an end to the era of notable figures endorsing a product untruthfully. So if you were thinking about creating a deep fake of a celebrity acting like a particular plan is the answer to their retirement goals, that is not compliant. Even if you know the actual celebrity, they may not endorse something untruthfully. CMS plans to enforce these rules by requiring agents, brokers, web brokers, and agencies to produce marketing materials upon request. Honestly, a lot of these regulations, as I mentioned, on the Medicare side of things, these are nothing new. And for the majority of insurance agents, you are likely already following these rules. What CMS is trying to do with these marketing regulations and some of these other laws is, as they have mentioned repeatedly, cutting down on fraud, waste, and abuse. I did mention in the open that there are more than just these takeaways that I've mentioned today. We will be linking to the official CMS documents as well as the legislation in the Federal Register. And of course, if you have questions, we invite you to contact us here at asdpodcast@ritterim.com with those questions, and we will answer them here on the pod. If you would like those questions to be anonymous, we can certainly do that. And if you would like a shout out here on the show, send those our way too. Birthdays, anniversaries, milestones, goals. We would love to share in your celebrations with you and let other agents hear just how possible it is to thrive in this industry. Thanks so much for listening to our show today. If you are not already, follow along with us where you're listening right now. I hope you have a great weekend. Stay healthy and stay safe out there, and we will see you next week. The Agent Survival Guide podcast is a production of Ritter Insurance Marketing, an integrity company. This episode was written and produced by me, Sarah Ruppel. Script editing and fact check by Emily Ryan. Podcast design by Urban Rivera. Like what you hear? Follow along with our show wherever you get your podcasts.